Hey guys, Sean from Note Cycles. Today we are super excited to show you the brand new Soundstream Reserve V2. This thing is packed full of features and benefits for your Harley-Davidson Street Glide or Road Glide. So let's go ahead and fire up the V2 and show you some of the features of this new radio. It's a huge 8.3-inch screen that uses the entire bezel of where your factory radio was. All of the other aftermarket 14+ radios are a 7-inch screen. The V2 is packed with a 1000 NIT and QLCD quantum film screen, which provides a much brighter and more colorful and vibrant display, vastly improving visibility in direct sunlight. So you won't have any problem seeing it when you're out on that beautiful afternoon ride. New startup screen. This thing is lightning quick too. Wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Wireless headset integration. iPrimo native onboard navigation. So you don't have to rely on either Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Navigation's already built in. The Soundstream V2 will work perfectly with the stock CVO or Boom 1 or Boom 2 amplified systems or any aftermarket amplifier. Not only does it work with Sena headsets, but it will also work with all factory headsets as well as CB functions in Harleys such as Ultras. Sirius XM ready. You can use your factory USB connection that is already in your Harley-Davidson. It also comes with a USB-C off of the back with the watertight plug if you don't have that factory USB. It also has rally mode where you and a couple of your friends who have the radio can go ahead and all link together and listen to the same music, podcast, song, whatever. It's got a 15-band digital equalizer built in, as well as a 200-watt 4-channel amplifier that is class AB, and it can handle even your 2-ohm speakers. It's got 4-volt RCA pre-outs for front, rear, and subwoofer, as well as high-pass crossovers on both front and rear independently. The Soundstream V2 is Maestro RR compatible, which will give you all of your handlebar controls, including your cursor control, as well as give you the ability to see up to 10 individual gauge controls on the head unit, but choose up to any of 50 that are available through the head unit. So let's do a little overview on the head unit. It's already on. First is our Apple CarPlay icon. Next is our Android Auto icon. Third icon is your native built-in navigation. So we'll tap that and it'll give us our map, and we'll have the ability to punch in a destination. Tapping the home screen will bring you back to home. Fourth icon is your apps button. So we tap that. That'll give us our 2 pages of all the apps that are built into the unit. You can slide and you'll have, like your backup camera, some of your settings, and then your rally mode, sliding it back. So one of the big things on this app is the headsets. So later in the video, I'll show you how to pair your headset with that. Now we use and sell Sena, so that's what we're gonna be using. So if we get out of this, next is Bluetooth audio, pairing your telephone via Bluetooth. After that, we'll have our gauges. So tap our gauges. You have 2 pages of gauges. Again, they are customizable and you have up to 50 to choose from. So 2 pages of that. Tap that home button. And then last is the device list. Connect your Android or Apple phone directly to it. So on your home screen, you have a couple of things going on. You have the ability to go ahead and see your miles per hour and your gauges. You have your source icon, what you're doing if you're on Bluetooth or USB. So if we tap that, you'll go right to your gauges and you can keep them up as you're riding. So if you go back into the app screen, you'll kind of have everything that's available. So you also have your radio, you have motorcycle info. So if we tap that, you'll be able to see some of the information that your motorcycle is giving you. Gear selection, voltage, the direction in which you're traveling, and if you have a check engine light on. And if you go to the next page, That's where you have your camera, your setting menu, so you'll have your system, your display, your audio settings, your Bluetooth settings, as well as your Wi-Fi settings. So we'll go through a lot of that stuff once it's installed on the bike. Included in our Soundstream V2 head unit bundle, you'll receive the GPS antenna. You can also use your factory GPS antenna off of your bike now. You receive a harness, as well as the Maestro RR already flashed for your motorcycle, and the Bluetooth microphone. So now that we've gone over some of the features and benefits of the Soundstream Reserve V2, let's go over some of the tools we're going to need to disassemble the front fairing, remove our factory radio, and install the new radio into our bike. I usually like to have some sort of towel or rag, as well as some sort of fender cover. Going to need a pair of wire tie snips or cutters, some wire ties for cleaning up any wiring and getting them all out of the way, a socket, some Allen head sockets, a T27 Torx, as well as a T25 Torx, 5/32 Allen, as well as a 3/16 Allen. So now that we've gone over all the tools, we can move over and start disassembling the front fairing of our bike and getting into it. So let's begin the disassembly of the front fairing on our 2017 Harley-Davidson Street Glide. We're going to be removing 7 total T27 bolts, 3 from the front of the fairing, 4 from the rear. First things first though, you're going to want to grab some sort of protectant, whether it's a fender cover, blanket, towel. Put that on your front fender just in case. Now that that's on there, covering that front fender, we can go ahead, start removing the 3 T27s at the windscreen on the front of the fairing, leaving the middle one still in, because we'll remove that last, and that's so that our fairing doesn't fall off or fall over. So we'll begin by removing the 3 T27 bolts from the front fairing. And we'll loosen the middle one up almost all the way, but still leaving it just threaded just a hair so our front fairing doesn't fall. We'll move to the back side of the fairing, remove the 4 bolts from there. So let's get that done. To remove these, we're going to start on the brake side, going up above the brake handle and undoing that. The top bolt is the longer of the 2. Then we will move down to the lower part of the back fairing and remove that. Quite a big size difference. Just remember, the smaller one is in the lower part of the fairing, the larger one is in the upper part of the fairing. Now moving to the clutch side, we'll start with the upper bolt. Get that removed. Lower bolt. Now as long as you still have the middle bolt on the front side, your front fairing should not fall off. Just be careful. If you have a second person, just kind of have them keep an eye on it. If not, once you remove those 2 bolts, you can move back to the front, get that last bolt out, and disconnect the headlight. So we've already removed 2 of the 3 bolts from the front of the fairing and all 4 bolts from the rear. So now take your windscreen, remove the windscreen set somewhere safe that it won't get scratched. Freehand, just go ahead and finish unscrewing the last bolt, slide that out, and you can go ahead and drop your fairing and then unplug your headlight. Once your headlight is unplugged, set your front fairing in a safe place, top of a bench, work table, whatever you have, just out of the way so it doesn't get damaged. So now that we have our front fairing off, we have a few more bolts and plugs to disconnect and remove to gain access to our factory head unit bolts. First, we'll take off the fresh air vent. There'll be 2 T27s on either side, and then that will just slide out. So let's go ahead and remove those now. So those 2 bolts are out. That will just slide and come right out. Next from there, I like to, and you don't have to do this, I like to remove the plugs from the gauges as well as the trees that hold them in. So I'll Just gently pull on the tree. I'll give a little pry on the tree and then just get a little panel tool and just pop the plug out. Now that's for all three. Then remove this tree and pop this last gauge. So once that's removed, you can kind of go from there, just remove them, just drop it down, get it out of your way, because we're going to be all in here removing a couple more bolts. So once that's out of the way, we have a aftermarket amp rack in here, which gives us the ability to put some of the factory wiring back in, but we're going to pop those, remove those. So now we're going to have 4 bolts on the top of the amp plate or the top of the radio. We're going to have 1 next to our cubby. We're going to have 3 holding in this gauge, as well as 2 holding on to the factory speaker pods. So again, they're all T27s, except for the 2 that are holding onto the gauge pod, and we'll get those off next. So again, T27, we're going to go ahead and remove the 4 bolts on top of the amp rack. Get that out of the way. Now we're going to remove 1 holding into the cubby and the 3 holding the center gauge together. Now we'll go ahead and remove the 1 bolt next to our cubby. So now removing the 3 around the gauges. Number 2. And the final one in the middle. Now you want to leave that just a little bit still connected for when you remove the 2 5/32 on either side of the radio plate. Grab our 5/32. Some Harleys will have 4, ours only has 2. And then you'll want to remove the other one from the other side. Now that both of those are out, we can go ahead and remove our top plate. Just again, be careful of your gauges. You still have that 1 bolt to remove. So we'll finish removing that and your gauges will come right out. So before we remove our 4 3/16 bolts holding the radio, we're going to go ahead and unplug all of our plugs. So we will unplug our factory USB, as well as our factory power and speaker harness. So by that, you're pushing in on the tab, folding it back in towards the radio itself, and then just sliding it out. So once you have everything disconnected, some of you may have the factory GPS antenna, you may have a factory powered antenna as well. You're gonna wanna unplug all those also. So let's go ahead and remove the 4 3/16 bolts holding the factory head unit in. One, and get the second one out. And then go over to the other side and start removing those. And the second one. Now that all of our bolts are out, you'll notice the radio will slide around a little. All you have to do, pick it straight up and remove it from the bike. So now it's time to go ahead and install our new Soundstream V2 back into our bike. We're going to basically do everything in reverse. So first thing, you can go ahead and set the radio in and line the bolt holes, which will go into the factory bolt holes, and you'll reuse your factory bolts right back in. So we're going to go ahead and get all 4 started, and then we'll adjust our radio and tighten those down. So get them all in and snugged up, but not tightened all the way down. So you notice we still have the ability to move it a little bit. Now this is a full screen, so you just want to snug it up to the foam of the front fairing, and then go ahead and finish tightening down all of your bolts. Make sure it doesn't move. So now that it's tight, give it a little shake, make sure it doesn't move. Now, if you did not have a factory USB, you can go ahead and run the factory USB into your cubby here. We have one, so we're not going to use this. We're going to leave this back here. We also decided not to do the satellite radio on our bike for now. We may add that later. You also have your Bluetooth microphone input, as well as your backup camera input. So now we can begin plugging everything in. Start with the main harness, which has the Maestro attached to it. Grab our Maestro harness, plug it in, and just like the factory, lock it. Same on the other side. Plug it in, lock it. Now if you have a power antenna, you will plug your power antenna into this output. And we usually just put the Maestro beside the radio, keeping it out of the way, but we'll go through our final steps and wire tie everything together. So we are going to be using our factory USB plug. So we can plug that into the area where it's labeled USB. Make sure we hear that click and it's plugged in. Also, I'm going to be using our factory Harley GPS antenna. So that will go directly underneath the USB plug. So these are all clocked in a specific way, so you can't put them on incorrectly. Make sure that clicks in. We're going to leave that just on top to mount that down onto the top plate in a bit. Also, our antenna, I'm actually going to be installing a new antenna. We'll plug into right next to the USB. Make sure you hear that click. And then we will also run that once we start getting that all back together. So now, if you have amplifiers or anything like that that you need to run RCAs, now's the time to do that as well. As well as we're going to get our microphone plugged in, plug into the small adapter ring. And I'm just going to set it up here for now, keeping it out of the way so I can wire tie it later. So now that all that's out of the way, we can go ahead and start reassembling the front part of the bike, starting with the gauges. Kind of get the gauge in, get that very top bolt back in loosely. Then we'll get the top plate back on and then finish all that. So let's do that. Go ahead and get our gauge on. Get it bolted in just slightly so it doesn't fall out. And then we can grab our top plate, making sure we put it on the right way. 2 holes will go towards the fairing itself. And this, you may have to, wiggle a little bit, get it in there, but we'll get it generally in there. Looks like we're in there pretty well. Now, one thing you want to make sure when you're putting the top plate on, that the factory mounting holes to the top of the radio are visible, and you're going to want to kind of get all your bolts in, but not tightened up until everything is in. You don't want to strip those out. So from there, we'll go ahead and grab the 2 bolts that hold the gauges in. So that one's in. Okay, they're all in. We'll start these by hand. These will strip out pretty easily if you're not careful. So start those by hand on either side. So once they're started, you can just go ahead and get them in, but not tightened down all the way. So we're still loose, still double checking, making sure all of our holes are still lined up. Small bolt for the cubby here. Get that in. There you go, that's tight now. And go ahead and put our amp rack back on. Again, that will line up perfectly with both. Those bolts started. So now we've got all of our bolts back in. We can go ahead and tighten them all down. I start with the ones on top of the radio, just to make sure we don't strip those out. Get those all tightened down. Then moving on to the gauges, go ahead and get those three all tight. Just double check our cubby. That's tight. And moving on to our two that are into the speaker pods, go ahead and get them tightened down. So now that everything is tightened down, we can double check all of our connections, make sure we have everything that we need to have plugged in. So we have everything. Again, we're not doing anything with the satellite radio or the camera for right now, so we can kind of tuck those away. Once all that's done, go ahead and take our harnesses for our gauges, get those back into play. Now you'll be doing some wire management here after we get all these plugged in. Get that plugged in, Christmas tree in, middle one plugged in, Christmas tree in, and just kind of go around making sure everything's back to plugged in. If you have an amplifier, or if you are installing an amplifier, now you'll be doing that kind of stuff. Let's go ahead, check our radio, make sure it turns on, make sure we have sound, and then we can finish wrapping the front of the bike up. All right, let's turn on our bike, check for functionality. So let's go to the home screen, go to our apps, and let's just try the radio first. Checking our handlebar controls, volume up and down works. Our cursor works. Switch to AM, switch back to FM. Check left and right. So we double check on our handlebar controls that our volume up and down works, as well as our track up and down. So let's go to FM. Yep. Our track up and down works. Now let's go back to the home screen, double check that our source works. So our source is changing if we press in. So that's perfect. Now let's double check our cursor control. So yep, that is working. We can go all the way over, check out our equalizer. Cool. So all of our handlebar controls are working, as well as our radio and our volume. We have sound. So now we can be pretty confident in going ahead and cleaning up our wiring and putting our fairing back together. So now it's time to do some wire management. Again, depending on what you have inside your fairing, they're all going to be a little different, but we're just going to do some wire tying, make sure that we wire tie our Maestro somewhere safe, as well as some of our extra wiring. Get these two plugged in. Keep them out of the way. So now we'll grab some wire ties, tie up our extra wire for our Bluetooth mic, which we'll cover later as we're installing the fairing. We're going to go ahead and hide our USB-C back with our Maestro in this little cubby hole. We'll go ahead and tie up the main connector, just kind of keeping it out of the way, but still together. And then we'll grab our extra Bluetooth wire length and get that together, get that wire tied and out of the way. Cut off the ends so we can get that in here as well. And then lastly, we'll get one wire tie onto our Maestro through the hole in the Maestro on the side, and then around some of the other wires. Go ahead and zip tie that. So now that we got most of our wire management done, again, all bikes are a little bit different with how people have them done. So this is just a guide, not the rule. Everything's good. We can go ahead and put in our fresh air vent. It will slide in just like it slid out. Just make sure your antenna is not in the way, like mine is. There we go. I also have my Bluetooth microphone popping out here. So we can go ahead and get these bolts in. So you just want to be gentle with your microphone mount. So kind of get that in there. So now we can go ahead and grab our front fairing. Gently set it down, plugging it in till we hear a click. You're also going to want to make sure you have the center bolt for the front fairing just to get that on. So get that in, turned a couple turns just to make sure it doesn't come off. So now it's on there. Then we can go ahead, start from the rear, getting our 4 bolts on the back part of the fairing back in, and then we'll move on to the windscreen and the front 2 bolts. So just as a reminder, the longer bolt goes in the top. You want to always start these by hand. Smaller bolt to the bottom. Same thing for the other side. Longer bolt up top. Get that started by hand, as well as the lower bolt. Once you have them all started by hand, you can go ahead and use your T27 Torx and tighten them down completely. Now that all 4 bolts are in the back of the fairing, we can move to the front and the windscreen, get the 3 remaining bolts tightened down. So let's do that. Get our windscreen dropped in. There we go. And then go ahead and tighten all 3 of those down all the way. So now we have one last thing to do before we can actually finish up the install, and that is mounting the Bluetooth microphone. So this will give us the ability to use Google Assistant or Siri or ask for directions. So this comes with a multi-mount. You can clip it. So we're going to actually remove it from the mount, and inside the bag that the Bluetooth microphone came in, there's going to be some double-sided sticky tape. Go ahead, stick that on the bottom of the mount, and then peel the other side. And you can put this wherever you would like. I'm going to stick it right on top. So now we're at the bike. The Soundstream V2 is all installed. Fairings back on. I am super duper pumped to check out this brand new 8.3 inch screen. Check out all the new features that the Soundstream V2 has to offer. Huge advancement in audio. So let's get into it. I'm going to go over some of the features and show you it all. So the radio works. Let's check our volume controls. Down, up, I'm going to go ahead and kind of hold up our factory Harley-Davidson radio to the new Soundstream V2, and what a difference. I think the factory radio is about 5.5 to 6 inches across, 8.3 inch of all screen. It's gorgeous. Let's check our cursor control. Cursor control works. So we can go right into our motorcycle info. Cool, go into our vehicle settings. Let's go back home. So the home screen gives you a lot of your choices of sources, as well as some of the options you have, as far as you'll have your speedometer on there. You have your source that you're on, as well as if your Bluetooth phone is connected, and some of your engine vitals, such as what gear you're in, the voltage of the bike, and if you have a check engine light on. So if we go into our apps, slide over, we can get into our main settings. Our main settings are going to be where we adjust all of our date and time, as well as our display and our audio settings. So we can go ahead in and set the date. So today's 4/23, and it is approximately 1:45. So you can just go in and change that until you're at the right time. And we're going to do 12 hours, so 1:45. Perfect. Now this, you can have beep on and off. So when you hit stuff, you'll hear a beep. I'm going to leave it off for now. Camera view, you would adjust the camera. We don't have the camera hooked up. Next, we can go into our display, check out our background wallpaper. Gives you a few that you have to choose from. So let's go ahead and we'll choose the Harley-Davidson background there. A little bit darker. We can adjust our brightness at both daytime and nighttime. Right now we have our night mode on auto, so it'll automatically adjust itself. And you can actually give yourself a clock to automatically do it for you at a specific time during the day and night. Going into our audio settings, first one is fade and balance. Click in there and you can adjust the fade and balance equally, as well as reset it back to 0. You'll have your 15-band digital equalizer going from 40 hertz to 16 kilohertz. Gives you plenty of room for adjustment just on the head unit alone. Next is our front and rear crossover, so we can actually adjust them separately depending on what speakers you have, if you have an aftermarket amplifier, bag subs, whatever you have. After that, we go into our subwoofer settings. Right now, the subwoofer output of the unit is on. We can shut it off since we don't have a subwoofer currently. But if you are on, you can adjust your subwoofer level up or down, as well as the subwoofer crossover and phase. You have the ability to have that amp turn on be delayed, so you don't get any pops or cracks when you start the bike. And volume settings. So you have a couple of different options to boost the volume on certain levels. So if you go into the source level adjust, and say you want your Sirius XM to be a little louder than everything else, you can just go ahead and add a little bit of gain internally from the head unit itself. We don't have Sirius XM, so we'll leave that off for now. And then you can also adjust the maximum volume. So if you have your amplifier and you have it set up and you notice distortion, and can't really adjust your head unit or adjust your amplifier, you can back down the maximum adjustment. So here 40 is max, you can back it down to 38, 35, whatever you so choose. Let's go ahead and pair our phone and check out the wireless CarPlay. So we'll go into device list. It says to use smartphone connectivity, USB connection or Bluetooth pairing is required. Do you want to start searching for Bluetooth devices? We're going to hit yes. I'm going to go ahead and make sure my Bluetooth is on. Okay. It found me, so I'm going to connecting to my phone. Same pass key, so we're going to go ahead and pair. Allow my favorites to sync and press yes to enable Apple CarPlay. So we're going to tap yes. Now it's connection, and boom, we have Apple CarPlay. But you can also continue to use your factory USB that's in your cubby. So it'll be the factory. You just plug in any of your USB A's directly into it. Give my phone a quick plug in. Perfect. You can also use that for USB music, anything else, charging. Now, the nice thing about the Apple CarPlay on the Soundstream V2 is it's the whole way across. You know, you have that full 8.3-inch screen. You have all your different menus. So let's try checking on maps. Maps is right there. Let's see if we can get it to do some searching. So search.
Where do you want to go?
Navigate to Dairy Queen.
One option I see.
So it's that easy, and that's the important part of having the microphone hooked up, so you can do all your voice commands, whether it be Siri or Google Assistant. So we'll go ahead and cancel that because we don't really want to go to Dairy Queen right now. Find something to play. Everything sounds good there. So to get out of, when you're in Apple CarPlay and you want to get out of it, since there are no buttons on the screen, there's no home button, there's no back button, anything like that. To get out of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you're going to tap the Soundstream icon. Tapping that will get you back to your main home screen where your navigation is, where your Bluetooth audio is, all that stuff. Now just remember, anytime you're wirelessly going Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, your Bluetooth audio will become unavailable. Not a big deal. You'll still be able to make and receive phone calls, send text, everything like that. It's only going to be available when Apple CarPlay or Android Auto is not connected to it. So let's just go ahead and double check our native navigation. So right now it's still looking for GPS signal, but it's in the correct general area, so that's good. See if we can go into the menu here, go into settings, go into sounds. Let's see here, the voice.
And 50 meters, turn left.
So you can actually adjust the loudness of the voice for the native nav.
Turn left.
So close that. Let's see here, dings. So you can actually adjust all of your sound settings inside the settings of the native nav. All right, next let's go into our gauges, check those out, and we'll be able to see everything. So right now we're at 12.3 volts. Our intake temperature is off because the bike's not running. Twist grip, obviously, bike's not running, so it won't give us any percentage. You can swipe over, get to another batch of gauges. Now these are all interchangeable, and you can choose which gauges you want on which page. So if you hit the settings button, go into select gauges, and now you can pick which gauge you want. So your center gauge, you can do your 0 to 60. You can go back. Top left gauge, you can pick any of these that you want. Top right gauge, any of these that you want. Map sensor voltage, oil pressure, rear spark advance, anything like that. Now popping back out. You'll have all of your information. You can tap your fuel economy. You can reset that. Go to your OBD2 communication. It's enabled, so that's what actually gives us all of our gauge information and our bike information. So let's hop out of the gauges. And we'll go into our motorcycle info. So that will give us all of our information, including what gear we're in, our voltage, the compass or direction we're heading, as well as our check engine lights, or if our check engine lights are on. Some bikes will give you TPMS sensors. I don't believe ours has TPMS sensors, so we won't be showing that. You'll also be able to tell if you're on high beam, low beam, turn signal information, and then some of the stuff you can actually set in the vehicle settings. So obviously we're in America, so we're using English. One last thing I want to do is actually hook up our Senna helmet to the Soundstream V2. So for that, we're going to go into apps and then go into headsets. So, and then you're going to hit headset list. Now this one is already on here, but I'm going to show you how to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete. So now I've deleted that. I am going to grab my helmet, turn it on. Now the set of headsets, turn it on by pressing the top two. So now we are in pairing mode. We can hit search on the radio. It's found it. So now we can tap cancel because it is the Senna Impulse V1.0. So tap that, and now it's connected. From your home screen, tap down on the top arrow, and right here is where you can switch back and forth depending on what you want to use. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate that now. So I will start playing music, and I will flip back and forth between the helmet and the motorcycle. I'm going to go ahead and put the helmet on. Just so you can hear a difference through the microphone. So we'll start playing some music. And now switch over. So now it's going through my headset and the helmet. Then switch back over, shuts off, back on. Back to the headset. So super easy to do, works very well, very quick. As soon as you switch it from motorcycle to helmet, it's almost instantaneous. Super cool feature, available on the Soundstream V2. So the last thing we want to go over on the new Soundstream V2 is the rally mode. So you can go over and actually connect with other people that have the V2 and all play the same music at the same time. Pretty cool little feature. The new Soundstream V2 is a fantastic upgrade to any of your Harley-Davidson Street Glides or Road Glides. The 8.3-inch screen, the ability to have wireless Apple Carplay, Android Auto, the ability to have the native navigation built in so you don't have to worry about Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, the ability to pair a helmet, Bluetooth to the radio, amazing. The gauges, fantastic. Soundstream has definitely knocked it out of the park with this new V2. So if you're looking to purchase the new Soundstream V2 or have any questions at all, please visit us at notecycles.com. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as always, have a blast out there.